In this chapter, we are going to talk about graphical methods. Now, remember, graphical methods is one branch of descriptive statistics, as I mentioned in a previous lesson. Now, also remember, descriptive statistics has two branches: graphical methods and summary statistics. So, graphical methods, as you can guess, all visual, like plots, graphs, and things like that. Now, summary statistics, if you can remember, it's like the average and so forth, which we will talk about later. Okay. Now, so in this lesson, we are going to learn about graphical methods. Now, one thing what you need to remember uh, is that the type of graphical method that you use depends on the type of data. Okay, so now there are two types of um, graphical methods: pie charts and bar charts for categorical and ordinal data. And there's another two types of graphs for quantitative data, and they are called stem plots and histograms. Okay. Now, also let me tell few more things about the different types of data. Now, first of all, categorical data are also called qualitative data. Okay, because see how is categorical data defined? It's based on it's actually group data, right? And it's the data is grouped according to a quality or a characteristic. Remember the ethnicity? So ethnicity is the characteristic that you use to group the data. Okay. Now, also remember, ordinal data can be either categorical or quantitative. If you go back to chapter 1 examples, cancer stage. Cancer, cancer stage is also categorical because there were several groups, but it is not quantitative. Now, on the other hand, if you think about age, which we talked about, you know, which we talked about age when we talked about age as a quantitative variable. Now that is quantitative, but at the same time it is ordinal because you can order the data. Okay, one age value is more or less than the other, so you can have both quantitative and categorical data to be ordinal. Now there's another point to remember: not all categorical data can be ordinal. The example is ethnicity. See, you cannot order ethnicity. Okay. All right then. So let's go to the next slide. In this one, yeah, now let me go back to the next slide. Sorry. So now actually the chapter is divided into three sections. Now in the first section, we talk about stem plot. Now stem plots are for quantitative data. And then in the next section, we will be talking about frequency tables. You can certainly create tables for all kinds of data. So this belongs to both. This belongs to categorical, ordinal, and quantitative. And then of course, once we do the frequency tables, we can create different kinds of frequency charts, and which using either quantitative data or qualitative data. Now, qualitative data can be either categorical or ordinal, if you remember. Okay, so now let's go to the next slide. So here we are talking about stem and leaf plots. Okay, now um, now actually we are going to concentrate on creating a stem and leaf plot for single variable, just one single variable. That means just one x. Okay. Now, okay, so let's try to do an example, which is in the next slide. Um, so here's the first example that we are doing here. So we have these data values which I have listed in here. Of course, it is ordered. Can you see that? The data is increasing. This is the smallest, and this is the second smallest, and so forth. Okay. So now, when you have to do a stem plot, what you do is you take each observation and then divide it into two portions, which we call to be stem and leaf. Okay. Now notice that these observations are in the tens, like 20, 24. See, they're not hundreds. Now, so what you choose to be stem and leaf is a little bit subjective. So now you have to divide each data point or observation into a stem and leaf. So in this example, we'll take the tens place to be the stem and the remaining to be the leaf. So if you take 30, for example, 3 would be the stem for this observation and 0 would be the leaf. Okay, so each observation is divided into a stem and a leaf. Okay, and then 21 stem is 2 and 1 will be leaf. Okay, so you can sort of, it's kind of mentally you can figure out what the stem and the leaf will be for each of these observations. Okay, now let's go to the next one. So here's the illustration continued where you may make do the stem and leaf. So I just listed the data again for you here. So now we have the stems written down like vertically, and then it's increasing. So 0, 6, 0 corresponds to this stem here, and 1 in here, 4 would be right here, and so forth. So you will write all the stems, and then what you do is you will go back and then write the leaves corresponding to each observation on this side. Okay, so now what is completed here is for 21. See, look, 2 is the stem for that observation and 1 is the leaf, so which you write along on that row. Okay, so you can think of each of these as a row. Now also remember, just one way to think of this is you can think of this vertical stroke as a decimal point. I will in fact talk about this in the next slide. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so here again, these are the stem values, and then what you do is, now if you go back to the data, you can see that the leaf for 05 observation was 5, and then you can put all the leaves onto the right side of this vertical stroke, and then also think when you have the stem and leaf, this vertical stroke you can think of like the decimal place. Okay, so it's like 0.5, 1.1, then you have 2.1 is one observation, then 2.4 is the next one, 2.7 is the third one. Now see, these are not the actual observations. Remember in the data set we had, we did not have 2.1 and so forth. We had 0, 1, 11 and so forth. So to get the actual observations, what you do is you get this 0.5 and then multiply it by what is called the axis multiplier, which is in here, and that is 10. So when you multiply 0.5 by 10, you get 5. And then 1.1, you get 11. Those are the actual original observations. Okay. So you need to remember this axis multiplier is important. Now also remember, I will talk about this later in another slide as well. Different statistical software like SPSS, Minitab, they use different terms. That's something I don't know, little odd about all these softwares. They have their own terms. So you have to get used to them, by reading the manuals or the help menu and so forth. Okay. All right. Now this is the stem plot vertically, and here it is done horizontally. Okay, so you can do it either way. All right. Okay, so let's go to the next one.